Now, the mission of the Ocean Sewage Alliance is to eliminate sewage and wastewater pollution from our oceans and waterways, advance equitable and holistic actions that benefit people and nature. And recently, the Alliance co-authored a landmark study with Economist Impact. Now, the research revealed the staggering cost of inaction, nearly $20 billion every year from just 4 countries, and an estimated $4 trillion globally. But this particular story is much bigger than those numbers. It's about public health, it's about fisheries, it's about tourism, it's about the fundamental value of our clean water and how it impacts our lives. To explore this perspective, my colleague Anna Gunn spoke with 2 of the report's co-authors. First, Jasmine Fournier, Executive Director at Ocean Sewage Alliance. Now, Jasmine shared why this issue often goes unseen and why it matters everywhere.
Hi, Jasmine. Thank you so much for joining us on the Water Action platform. It's wonderful to have you here.
Great. I'm so excited to be here and chat with you more. I looked over your website a bit, and it seems like you all are doing very interesting work. So I'm so excited to come here and talk about some of the work we've been doing.
Brilliant. So I'm going to dive straight in. The Ocean Sewage Alliance, you've created a report. It's been published now. It's been out. You've had time to socialize it. I'd love to get your insight as to how it's been received and a bit of the context about why now? Why is it so valuable now?
Sure. I'll start with the second question first, if that's okay. At Ocean Sewage Alliance, our work is to keep sewage out of the ocean. And for the most part, people are very open and receptive to that messaging. But what we kept coming into conflict with was, why does no one seem to care? And why does it seem like it's a very low number on a many long list of things to do? I think most people are aware of the issues with plastics. Some people might be aware of the issue with ocean acidification, and very few people are aware of the global issue of sewage and wastewater pollution. And since it's so ubiquitous, and since it happens, say, even in my municipality, we have issues with sewage pollution. New York City has issues with sewage pollution. I don't know what the situation is where you are, but I'm sure there's some level of issue with sewage pollution. So despite us all having a relationship with it, most people are just unaware. So we talked to a lot of our colleagues to see what might help people to understand the gravity and the scalability of sewage and wastewater pollution. And unfortunately, a lot of the conversations around pollution and ocean really have to do with economics and the dollar amounts associated with some of these problems. And while for I think many people too, they understand sewage in the ocean, bad. Don't want to swim in sewage. It's bad for fisheries. It's bad for, I live in New Orleans. We have a large oyster farming industry here. So bad for oysters as they are filtering the water, but can we help to make something that makes sense to policymakers and decision makers that are really looking at dollars and return on investment? So that's how we came to this idea, the economic impact of sewage and wastewater pollution. And what was exciting about the study is that for about 4 countries, we were able to calculate about a $20 billion annual loss in GDP, which for me is a lot of money. And I think, in my personal opinion, I might be biased, solving this problem, I think, 1, now we can show there's an investment perspective where you can save money. And 2, it has multiple different benefits across sectors for public health, for fisheries, for tourism, for folks working at utilities, having money to make sure their utility is properly working and maintained. To me, it's a win, 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 win. What surprised me was how hard it was to come up with some of these numbers and how hard it was, I think, in a sense. So we looked at 3 different sectors. We looked at fisheries, agriculture, and we looked at public health. But there is an intrinsic value of nature that we weren't really able to quantify in this particular study. So what I mean to say is there's a value that we receive from access to the ocean and the access to unpolluted waters or waters that don't have algal blooms. I can give an example. I live in New Orleans, and we're right next to the Mississippi River, about half a mile from the river. And the river discharges into the Gulf of Mexico. And we have a very large dead zone where the algal blooms from nutrient pollution basically makes an area that has no oxygen. And that means that fish, crabs, other creatures that rely upon that like oxygen rich and can't live. And so like what's the cost of that to us as people who want to thrive and live in a coastal area? And we weren't really able to capture that. Or what's the mental health value of access to beaches that aren't polluted with sewage? And I think the tension between economic impacts and not having extractive things happening with the ocean is sort of hard, because if the only value we're placing on the ocean is for fisheries, then we're missing a big chunk of the value of what the ocean means to us. Well, I'll say that $19.6 billion figure is for the 5 countries in our case study. So if you do just like back of the envelope math, globally, for all the countries of the world, it's over $4 trillion. So the impact is actually quite huge.
What is the one thing that you'd want global water professionals to take away from this report?
Sure. Well, I feel like global water professionals get it. And I think and I'm speaking widely, is that they understand that we need more money for infrastructure and more money for maintenance. And I think what I would ask us all to do is figure out how can we move that lever to get people and policymakers to start really investing in infrastructure around sewage and wastewater and drinking water. And remember that investment in infrastructure means maintenance. And I think that if we collectively could better advocate for that, maybe we could be in the same place where I think most people understand that plastic pollution is an urgent threat.
Jasmine, thank you ever so much for your time today. It's been wonderful to speak with you.
Now, as Jasmine makes clear, the impacts of sewage pollution are everywhere, from coastal ecosystems to public health to the food on our tables.